Mines need energy. They need lots of it. In the context of an accelerating energy transition, mines are at the center of the conversation about what a just energy transition could or should look like. But before those conversations can happen, mines need to be stable and profitable. As the CEO of the largest energy producer in Africa, Eskom, Dan Marokane, you might have some opinions about the future synergies between mining and energy. Welcome to Mining Indaba TV.
Thank you very much.
Considering that so many of South Africa's large energy users, like mines, are investing in on-site energy solutions, how do you see the relationship between Eskom and mines evolving?
Yeah, look, first of all, we need to understand that miners are good at doing mining. That's really their core competency. In this country, many miners and actually even other manufacturers found themselves straddling into the lane of energy production simply because we had a deficit from a country perspective. And the one way of protecting or ensuring their own businesses was to do self-generation. The country's rules also changed to allow them much more flexibility of moving into that space. From an Eskom perspective, we have understood that the migration of miners into energy was as a result of that the need to fill that gap. We focused on our own recovery from an operational perspective, but also an adjustment of our own strategy. There are two things that are quite key for miners. The first one is just the availability of energy. The second one is the migration towards greener electrons, because many of them are operating in markets that are quite sensitive to the nature of the energy that you use in your value chain. We have adapted our strategy to also move into building up our own renewable portfolio. And with our renewed performance improvement, we have seen miners and other industrial customers coming back to say mining or manufacturing is our core competency, yours is electricity. Can we find ways of collaborating? Fortunately, the reforms that have been made to date allow miners to continue to self-generate. The reforms that are coming and the revision of Eskom's business strategy, as a matter of fact, is going to place us in a position where we have a movement away from consumers to prosumers, where we're actually able to also tap into excess capacity generated by customers. So this liberalization of the industry is good for the country. It has come around as a result of a big gap that needed to be addressed quite urgently, but it's been the right catalyst for the reforms, and we fully embrace it as Eskom.
That leads me perfectly to the next question, is about that market structure and the debundling of Eskom. And how far away do you think is a scenario where mines could actually be selling energy back to the grid?
Yeah, look, we have established the National Transmission Company unbundled from the group. The Energy ERA Act has actually been now promulgated. It calls for existence of a transmission system operator within the next 5 years. That will allow us to get into a space where generators and customers can actually be able to interact with the TSO. So we're not very far from that perspective. We've spent time this week beginning to thresh out how that structure should look like. More importantly, what its characteristics should be, so as to accelerate the country towards that point of interactions from a liberalized market setup here.
Unfortunately, load shedding has returned, and Eskom's caught in this almost conflicting priorities where you need revenue, but you also need to manage demand side. What is the short to medium term forecast for load shedding?
Yeah, look, I think let's first acknowledge the progress that has been made in terms of putting load shedding at bay. We have ran over 300 days, 311 days, as a matter of fact, without load shedding. We have consistently said this in our winter forecast and in our summer forecast, that whilst we recognize the improvements in the energy availability factor from our generations fleet, we're still not out of the woods in as far as load shedding is concerned. We have said two things. We needed to sustain the energy availability factor performance that we're seeing, and secondly, we needed to add capacity to make sure that we have sufficient reserves. We have also indicated that in the unlikely situation where the unplanned outages tend to spike above 13,000 megawatts, will run the risk of load shedding. In the past week, we've had a combination of failures that required us to utilize our reserves much more harder, and it was purely for the purposes of managing the reserves that we had this 37 hours of load shedding. We think until we get additional capacity on board, the country will remain vulnerable. I'm very comfortable about the trend of unplanned losses. That's really tapering down. It's gone as far down as 10,000 megawatts. It's averaging about 12 now. At that level, we should meet supply-demand ratios very easily. We are bringing back capacity. We have brought back the Quebec Unit 2 back from the steam generator replacement. We expect that regulator NNR will give us a 20-year life extension on this unit, like it was done for Unit 1. We have finished all the pre-steps in as far as the commissioning of Unit 6 at Kusile is concerned. We are literally running through the last step, step 9 of the 8, to synchronize this unit back to the grid, onto the grid, which should happen within February, and 6 months later should be in full commercial operation. We have also progressed significantly in the recovery of Unit 4 generator stator at Medupi, and that should really close off the big bill program. This capacity combined, 2.5 gigawatts, added to the existing capacity, augmented by the performance of the rest of the coal fleet, as per the maintenance plans that we are doing, should get us to a point where we can pronounce on the future of load shedding in the country. You should also remember that this is happening on the back of private sector projects from the renewal perspective that are due to come in this year and next year. So we should really be building reserves and net reserves from a country perspective. Yeah.
Speaking of projects, project funding is largely influenced by electricity costs. Yeah. In the light of the recent proposed tariff hikes, do you see price stability in the short to medium term?
I must tell you that the ask that Eskom put on the table of 36% for the first year, 9% and 6% for the third year had to do with the need to move towards cost-reflective price tariff. Which has been absent for many years, and we've said this on many occasions. And it's an issue that National Treasury itself has said their condition for helping with the reduction of the debt in a manner that they are doing is that we should, on our own, be able to handle the level of debt that will be residual at the end of this program. Of course, the country has clearly indicated that they don't have appetite for this. The economy can't stomach this, and a hybrid or comfortable point was established by NESA to be where it is at 12.7. We accept that this is what we have to live with. We haven't as yet received the full record of decision on this matter. We are going to examine those and see where are the levers for us to chart a different path for the sustainability of Eskom. But let me remind you, we have said this repeatedly. The tariff path is one measure of the 4 in terms of the sustainability of the business. The reduction of the debt in terms of the debt relief program of NT is the second. But here's the third one that is actually growing out of control, is the municipality debt that will end up at about 110 billion rands come the end of the financial year. Unless an immediate solution is established for this, we run the risk of putting Eskom again on an unsustainable path going forward. So I just want to indicate that what we do now is accept that this is a path. We'll probably not see double-digit increases going forward. We are not anticipating them ourselves beyond the first year of application. We're now going to have to tailor business towards that. What cannot be dismissed is the fact that this country, for some time to go, will still require a functional Eskom. The role of Eskom even in the reforming industry is still significant as we provide the core of our base load. We dare not go back to those periods where the stop-starts in terms of funding availability impacted on the quality of our asset maintenance, which then led us to supply disruptions.
Let's change tack a little bit and talk about beneficiation. The government would love to see raw materials move from exports and actually become local manufacturing opportunities. How can Eskom plan to support those downstream industries?
Eskom cannot support those downstream entities. The electricity pricing approach of the country must support those. You remember, NERSA makes decisions. Eskom is just a player. Tomorrow, it will not be Eskom alone. It will be Eskom and 100 other IPPs. So we need a regulatory path that acknowledges what the key focal points of the economic stimulation package of government should be, and then set up a price that addresses those. I was quite happy to hear Minister Mantashe yesterday talk about that there's a need to do it. I myself have spoken to many of the mining entities, the Minerals Council in particular. I've requested that they should seriously consider developing a position in terms of which sectors of the mining industry needs to be supported and how. Because when that input is provided at the government EPP level, government policy level, it then informs what NERSA does. What is happening at the moment is not acceptable. It cannot be sustained. We have individual mining companies coming to request and negotiating price agreements that we take to NERSA one after another, various combinations, inconsistencies in the process, heckling between ourselves and NERSA and so on. We need to identify areas that we want to prioritize as part of driving the economic recovery of the country. Have a pricing regime that applies to them, that is supported by NERSA, Eskom, and all other generators line up in terms of that. But even those mining entities themselves should then show what is the benefit to the country as a whole. I think we're getting there. We should do it sooner than later.
I'm going to ask you to take out your crystal ball and look to the future a little bit. In that relationship, let's go back to that relationship between mining and the power sector. What do we need to do to future-proof African mining?
I think that the mining entities are likely to get closer to the energy suppliers. They'll do so because of protecting the markets that they have. If those markets are pro-green attributes, they'll partner and seek to partner entities that provide green energy. If there's still room for them to participate in non-green energy for quite some time, they'll do so for the purposes of security of supply. I have a sense that we're getting closer to our customers and we'll find very different ways of working and relating than we previously did. There's a need for strategic relationships. Energy is quite a crucial component of the mining value chain, and these relationships cannot remain transactional. If anything else that we've learned from the energy crisis is the need to be much more closer to each other, and that should change the manner in which we relate as well.
Dan, thank you very much for your insights.
Okay, thank you.
For more insights, we'll see you at miningindaba.com.